everybody, it's the Warhipster here, coming at you with a Stormcast Eternals painting tutorial, and today we are painting Sylas Beastbane. However, he's not going to be a Hammer of Sigmar, no, he's going to be an Astral Templar. Hope you're all very excited for Dominion, and I think the Astral Templars colour scheme is really unique and awesome. So I wanted to paint this in preparation for that very special box that's on its way. So without further ado, we're going to get into painting him. And the colour we're going to make is a roughly 3 parts Volupus Pink to 1 part Shyish Purple mix. Now he's been primed with Grace here, and what we want to do is we want to use this colour to paint in all of his armour. I'm going to start down here on the foot. And I'm just going to get this colour all over. All of my armour details. And so with that done, you should have a Sylas Beastbane that looks somewhat like this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to now just use Volupus Pink on its own. I'm going to use this over the top of our armour. And this is just to add some warmth in and just to really give it that Astral Templars tone. And it's going to interact lovely with that mix that we've already just applied. So the Shyish Purple is basically providing us with the darker shadows. We don't want to go straight in with the Shyish Purple because otherwise it would have just been too dark for the purposes of what we're trying to do here. Because Astral Templars have this lovely kind of warm pink scheme. Similarly, if we just go in with the Volupus Pink, it's much harder to kind of control and make sure it gets smooth. You just want to go around like this, covering over the top of all of our armour with Volupus Pink on its own. And then we'll come back. And so with that done, you should have some pretty swish looking armour. So what we're going to do is going to move on. Don't worry about highlighting it just yet. We will go back and do that later. But what we are going to do is we're just going to colour in a few more base coats before we get there. Now the colour we're going to be using next is Black Templar. And we're going to be using this for all of the soft joints and his belt. So we've got the strap here in his arm. Just like that. Got the other one in the other arm. Like that. Also got his armpit just under here. Got this little soft joint in the hip. And then we've got the belt. And so with that done, what we're then going to do is going to take some thinned down Retributor Armour. I'm going to use this to paint in all of our gold details. This is going to include the entire of the lion pauldron, just around here, like that. We also want to paint in the belt buckle. Like that. We want to paint in all of the trim, so we've got some trim around here on the arm. We've got some here on the knee. We've got this area here on his hip. We've got the what looks to be an iron halo, but it's not, on the back. And we've also got the hammer and lightning sigil on the shoulder pad. We can also colour in the weapon details. Areas like that little bit just there. And this large bit here. You can also colour in this area on the arm guard. And so with that done, our Astral Templar, or rather Sylas Beastbane of the Astral Templars, should be looking somewhat like this. So what we're going to do now is we're going to paint in the cloaks. Now, as far as I can figure out, the Astral Templars from the Battle Tome, they either use yellow or they use a turquoisey green for the cloaks. Now, I'm going to use the turquoisey green because I think it works really well with the purple. And of course, the colour that we're going to be using here is Terradon Turquoise first of all. So just want to take that on our brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint it on the outside of our cloaks. So this part and this part. I'm just going to start here on the front with the Terradon Turquoise. And with that done, what we're then going to do is going to do it again. Give it a second layer of Terradon Turquoise. And so with that done, what we can now do is we can use some Black Templar to paint in a Black Templar, a black detail that we didn't do before, which is going to be the Paterges. Remember that done? We're now going to take some skeleton horde. I'm going to use this to paint in the interior of the cloak. So you've got this little section just here. Like that. Got a bit there as well. Of course, we also have this large open area just here. So with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to paint in the fur pelt. So we've got this one here, we've got it coming all the way down here, around this section. Now we're going to be using two colours for this. We're going to be using Gore-Grunta Fur and Cygor Brown. What we want to do is we're going to start with some Gore-Grunta Fur. We just want to take this in sections. I'm going to start here on the front. I'm going to firstly paint this Gore-Grunta Fur all over our pelt. Just like this. Like that. Then I'm going to wash the brush. And we're going to take a little bit of Cygor Brown. We want to add this whilst it's still wet, just in certain areas. I'm going to add it down the middle. Of each of the pelt areas like that. Just brush. I'm just going to add a little bit more Gore-Grunta Fur in there, just to kind of lessen the effect of the Cygor Brown, just a little bit. Some there as well. Like that. Similarly on the back. Gore-Grunta Fur first. Like so. And then we take Cygor Brown. We want to add this going down the middle just here. Like that. And then similarly, like so. Once again, just take a bit of Gore-Grunta Fur, just to lessen the effect of that Cygor Brown. Just around there like that. And with that done, we're then going to use some Blood Angels Red to paint in the soft wrap. On the weapon. And with that done, what we're now going to do is going to use some Iron Hand Steel. I'm going to use this to paint in the weapon head. Now I've realised, after looking at various pictures, that we actually want to do this meteorite here in gold. And we also want to do this area here in silver rather than in Retributor Armour. Just looks a lot neater that way. Of course, you can leave it gold if you wish. And so with our weapon now correctly base coated, what we're going to do is we're going to use some Apothecary White. I'm going to use this for the various things hanging off of his tabard. Just like this. We're also going to use this for his hair. And then next up, we're going to use some Guilliman Flesh to paint in his face. So with that done, what we're now going to do is going to shade all of our metallics. Just before we're going to cover the head a little bit separately later on. We're just going to now focus on getting him done, and then we'll do the gore head. So what we're going to do first is we're going to shade all of the gold. And the colour we're going to make is a roughly 2 parts contrast medium to 1 part Fyreslayer Flesh mix. And we're going to use this all over the top of all of our gold. And with that done, what we're then going to do is we're going to shade our silver with a roughly 3 parts contrast medium to 1 part black Templar mix. So with that done, it's now time to relayer and highlight all of our armor pieces, well, all of our colors. And the color we're going to start with first is Skullcrusher Brass, and we're going to be using this on all of the gold. So what do we want to do? So we just want to start picking out all of the areas where the shade hasn't settled. So for example, on this lion shoulder pad, just want to pick out all of the kind of raised details like this. Like that sort of thing. Whereas on the kind of slightly flatter areas, for example on the foot, actually no, we'll do it on this shoulder pad. What we want to do is we just want to relayer this area whilst just avoiding that recess where the shade has settled. Just like this. And with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to create a roughly 2 part Stormhost Silver to 1 part Retributor Armour mix. And we're going to use this to highlight all of our gold. So with that done, our gold is now all finished. So what we're going to do is going to use some pink horror. I'm going to use this to highlight all of our, well, purpley pink armour. Just like this. And with that done, what we're now going to do is we're going to use a tiny amount of Cadian Fleshtone. I'm going to use this as a little spot highlight on that armour. So for example, just around here, we want to use this Cadian Fleshtone to pick out that rivet. Just there. So we'll add a little bit to the corner on either side. And a little bit going across the middle as well. Like so. Just want to go around like this, and then we'll come back. And with that done, what we're then going to do is we're going to use some Russ Grey, and we're going to use this to highlight all of our black details. And then with that done, we take some Fenrisian Grey and we add this as a teeny little spot highlight to all of our black details. Just add a little bit of brightness in there. And so with those black details finished, what we now want to do is we want to highlight our turquoisey areas, and the colour we're going to be using first is Sybarite Green. Just like this. And with that Sybarite Green applied, what we're then going to do is going to take some Gauss Blaster Green. I'm going to use this as a tiny spot highlight towards the ends of our little Sybarite Green areas. Just like that. And so, with that done, what we're now going to do is going to take some Screaming Skull. I'm going to use this to highlight our skeleton horde area. And so with that done, what we're now going to do is going to move on to our weapon head. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use some iron hand steel. But what we want to do is we want to thin it down with like 4 or 5 parts water till it's really, really, really thin. Almost kind of like water, almost like the same consistency as a shade at this point. And we're going to use this as a glaze over the top of our metal. And this is going to add some shine back into it without completely brightening up the whole thing. You see? Just like this, because we don't want it to be superbly bright. Just want it to be nice and shiny. Just want to avoid any of the recesses. With that shininess now restored to the weapon head, what we're now going to do is going to use some Stormhost Silver. I'm going to use this to highlight the weapon by picking out all of the edges. So with that done, our weapon is looking sufficiently deadly. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on. We're going to highlight the fur on him. And the colour we're going to be using first is Ungor Flesh. Now what we want to do is we want to just use this to pick out the strands and highlight the skin. With that Ungor Flesh applied, what we then do is take some Screaming Skull and just add a few little ones, a few little dots of this here and there, just to act as a little bit of spot highlight and to break up that Ungor Flesh. Just like that. Similarly on the back. And so with that fur complete, what we now want to do is we're going to use some Corax White. We want to use this to highlight all of our white areas. This isn't going to include areas like these devices down here, his hair, as well as our little lightning bolts here. Just like this. And so with that white applied, what we're now going to do is we're going to use some Flayed One Flesh. I'm going to use this to highlight his face. With that Flayed One Flesh applied, what we then want to do is take a tiny amount of Wyldwood. We want to paint this underneath his eyelids. Just like that. With that done, we're going to do the eyes slightly differently. What we're going to do is we're going to first start by taking some black Templar. We want to use this to block in the entire of the eyeball. Like so. And then with that done, what we then do is we take some Screaming Skull, and we add these as 2 dots either side of that black eyeball that we've just now fully blocked in. Like so. And so with that done, what we now want to do is take a tiny amount of Volupus Pink, not very much at all. We just want to dab this onto his bottom lip. Just like that. And so with that done, the Sylas Beastbane part of this model is now finished. So what we're going to do now is going to work on that gore head that he's carrying. And the first colour we're going to be using is Darkoath Flesh. We want to get this all over the beast's skin. A little too much paint. And next up, whilst that's drying, what we're going to do is going to take some Wyldwood. I'm going to use this to paint in the fur. So with that done, what we're now going to do is going to use some Volupus Pink. I'm going to use this in a couple of different areas. Firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to use it to colour in his tongue. And what we want to do when we're doing this tongue is we also want to colour in his kind of, well, gums. I guess is what they are. So we've got this bit here, just there like that. And we've got this bit here as well. Like that. Make sure we do both sides. Like that. So with that done, what we're then going to do is we're going to take some Wyldwood. I'm going to use this for the bottom eyelid. We just want to put it out there like that, just to give it a little bit of shadow. Then what we also want to do is add a little bit of this Wyldwood just in here, around the snout. We want to fill in the nostril. As well. Just like that. We want to repeat the process on the other side as well. So again, bottom eyelid, bring it down here. Do around there as well. Add some in the middle. Just like this. Add a little bit around here. Just like that. And so next up, what we're going to do is we're going to paint in the horns. Now we're going to use two colours here. We're going to use Skeleton Horde and we're going to use Wyldwood. And the first thing we do is we take some Skeleton Horde, and just over this broken horn here, we just want to paint that Skeleton Horde all over it. Just like this. What we can also do is we can use the Skeleton Horde on the teeth. Now don't worry if you've got Volupus Pink still on some of your teeth, it's okay, because we are going to highlight it and that will fix the problem. For the ones you haven't got any Volupus Pink on, you just want to add this Skeleton Horde all over it. Just like that. And then next up, what we want to do is we're going to take the Skeleton Horde. We want to paint this all over this, the intact horn. So we want to get this all on, all the way around, like that. Want to get it on the tip as well. Like that. Make sure we do the inside track. And then just add it just around there as well. Like that. Then what we do is we wash the brush. And whilst it's still wet, we grab some Wyldwood. And we just add this over the top, where we want it to be. So you want to, that area, we want to kind of bring it up to around about where that nick in the horn is. Like that. And wash the brush. Grab a bit more Wyldwood. Just add it around here. Like that. Again, just making sure to do the inside track. Then I'm going to wash the brush. Then I'm going to once again grab some skeleton horde. And I'm just going to add that where the two colours meet. Like that, just to give it a bit of a, it's kind of fade up. Like that. Just use a dry brush. Clean brush, I should say. Just there to mop up that little bit of excess. There we go. Perfect. Ooh, quite a large blob there, so I'm just going to move that. Move that onto the bottom area, make that nice and dark. Like that. And so with that horn done, what we then want to do is take some black Templar. We want to apply this over the kind of wire wrapping just here. Not that metal bit that's next to it. We're going to do that in just a minute. Just want to get it over this bit. Here, like this. And next up we're going to use some Iron Warriors to colour in our metallic details here. So we've got the rings around the horn, which are both here and down here. And next up we're going to use some Basilicanum Grey just to shade that silver. So with that done, what we're then going to do is take some Volupus Pink. I'm going to use this inside the broken area of the horn. You don't want to use very much. Just want to do it like that. So with that done, it's now time to add some highlights, and the colour we're going to use first is Flayed One Flesh. I'm going to use this to highlight the skin of the beast. So we're just going to start around here on the ear. Just picking out all of the raised areas. In amongst all that Darkoath Flesh. And next up, we're going to take some Screaming Skull. I'm going to use this to highlight those teeth now. You'll see what I mean about it not mattering if they've got Volupus Pink on them. Like so. What we also want to do is we want to highlight the horns for example, the broken one here, and on the intact one, just there. And with that done, we're then going to once again use Pink Horror to highlight the tongue and the gums. And next up, we just want to take some Basilicanum Grey and we want to paint this over the top of the eyeballs to give it that kind of glazed over, dead look. Like that. And with that Basilicanum Grey applied, we then take a tiny amount of Fenrisian Grey. We just want to add this over the eyeball. Like that. And next up, I'm going to take some iron hand steel and use that to highlight the silver. With that, Sylas Beastbane is now done, apart from his base. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the rock black Templar because I want a nice dark grey. And then I'm just going to finish off the rest of the scheme in a nice simple kind of soily style. But of course you should base your Astral Templars in the same style as the rest of your army. And so, our Astral Templar Knight-Questor, Sylas Beastbane, is now finished. Now, usually he would be painted in the colours of the Hammers of Sigmar, but I was very inspired by Dominion, and it being set in the realm of Gur, it made sense to paint an Astral Templar. They hunt a lot of beasts, and Gur is a lot of beasts. Gur. It's probably a similar noise to what that Gore made just before his head was lopped off. He was a lot of fun to do, very, very simple, very, very, very effective as well, with that little bit of Shyish Purple in there for the shadows, and then 2 coats of a Volupus Pink effectively is what that is. It just comes out so perfectly and smooth. If you enjoyed this video, you love the channel, and you'd like to support me further, like these legends and bosses that you can see on the screen before you, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Don't forget to share it, like it, comment on it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And to make sure you stay up to date, don't forget to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Happy wargaming.